All right, today's video reference, we're going to start a brand new unit learning how to solve equations. All right, so it's October. We're going to be using different levels and referring back to a classic Nintendo game called Super Mario Brothers. So basically in this unit, we're going to start in the first three levels of our solving equations. And today's video reference is about level 1, just literally simplifying expressions. So what does that involve? It involves combining like terms and using the distributive property. Later on, we'll then go to multi-step equations and then multi-step equations with variables on both sides, which is pretty much all review from 7th grade. And then we'll take a quiz, and then we'll get more into some 8th grade stuff. So if you look over here on this side on page 3, here's the big change to one of the changes from solving equations from 7th grade to 8th grade is that instead of changing all your subtractions to plus and negative, we're going to try to just see the subtraction sign as a subtraction sign and also a negative number. So for example, let's say we had this big long expression here that we're trying to simplify. 5x plus 2 minus 9x minus 3 parentheses 2x minus 5. So basically, I'm going to pause the video here. If you could take a moment to try to simplify this the best you could using your knowledge from 7th grade. All right, anybody want to raise your hand and tell me what did you get for this in simplest form? Negative 10x plus 17, possibly? So here's how you were taught to do it in 7th grade, I believe. So you would go 5x plus 2, and then you change all your subtraction to plus and negative. So it would become plus a negative 9x plus a negative 3 parentheses 2x minus 5. And then hopefully you distribute, and you get 5x plus 2 plus negative 9x. And then raise your hand, what did you get when you distribute the negative 3? Plus negative, oh man, I even forgot right here. This is supposed to be plus a negative 5. So this would be negative 6x plus 15, I believe. And then you would have to combine like terms. What like terms do we have if we look at the x terms? We have 5x, negative 9x, negative 6x. Altogether, that gives us the, we combine that, the negative 10x. Raise your hand, what other things can we combine here? Hopefully you said 2 and 15 to get the 17 right there. Okay, so now let's say we're in 8th grade now. We're going to look at this a little bit differently. So this minus 9x, I'm also going to see it as a negative 9x. Same thing with this minus 3. It's also a negative 3 in my mind now. This minus 5 is a negative 5. So if I was doing this the 8th grade way, I would simply distribute first. I would write this as 5x plus 2 minus 9x. And then negative times a positive would be minus 6x. And negative times a negative, remember I see these both as negatives now, is positive 15. Same thing, combine like terms here, here, and here. It's negative 10x. And then this term and this term for constants is just plus 17. So again, that's the one thing that's different. So continuing with the reference and just simplifying expressions. If you turn the page to page 4, let's look down here at the bottom and get parts of the expressions because we're going to be using these terms for the next few weeks, so we need to understand what we're talking about when I say these words. So raise your hand, who can tell me what a variable is? Yeah, a variable is just a letter, so like x and y. So if I said, what are the variable terms? What are the variable terms? Hopefully you would say it's just 2x and 4y. Then let's say we're looking for the constant. So the constant is literally just the, if it's just an integer. So the constant term here, you would just say is 9. So there's 3 different terms in this expression, 2x, 4y, and 9, but 2x and 4y are your variable terms, and 9 is a constant term. The other thing we have here is the word coefficient. The coefficient is the number that is next to the variable, so 4 here. So really quickly, just so we have some practice here, if I wrote this expression down at the bottom, copy this down, let's do negative 3x minus 4 plus 9x plus 3. Raise your hand. Could you tell me for a scoosh how many terms are in this expression? Yep, there's 4. Raise your hand. Could you tell me what is the variable in this expression? X. Raise your hand. What are the variable terms? Negative 3x and 9x. And then what are my constants? Negative 4 and 3. All right, so for today's examples, we're just going to go through and actually practice simplifying expressions. So I'm going to have to pause the video here. All right, so we're going to go ahead and simplify these expressions. So the 2 steps are, first thing you want to do is always distribute any constants to the inside of the parentheses. And of course, when you distribute, you're going to multiply. And don't forget to carry any negatives that are there. So that's really important. After you distribute, then you just combine the like constants with the like constants and the like variable terms with the like variable terms. And don't forget, there could sometimes be some assumed ones. So let's go ahead and do the first one. So there's no distributive property. Raise your hand. Is there anything I can combine? Yep, so hopefully you said 3x and 7x. And I can also combine 8 and negative 2. When I combine my variables, what do I get? So this would be 10x. Copy this down if you don't have it yet. And then for my constants, I would get what? Plus 6. All right, moving on to number 2. Still no distributive property. I'll pause the video here. If you could maybe try to do this one on your own. Tell me what you get. All right, if you did this one correctly, did you get negative 2p minus 1, I believe? Sure, let's double check that. Raise your hand. What are my like variable terms? Negative 3p and p. When you combine that, that is just a negative 3 plus that assumed 1 is just going to be negative 2. And then my constant terms are 9 and negative 10. When you combine those 2 numbers, you get negative 1. All right, number 3 is our first distributive property. So first thing we're going to do is we like to write these symbols for distributing. So raise your hand if someone want to distribute that 2 to the inside. Remember, you're going to see this as a negative, not only a subtraction sign. So this would be negative 12a minus 8. So that's a little bit simpler. Number 4, now we have distributive property and combining like terms. But I put this one on purpose because you can't forget to distribute that negative 10 to the inside. Raise your hand who wants to distribute that negative 10. So you get negative 40 minus 70n. And then there's only 2 things I can combine. Raise your hand. What can I combine? Negative 2 and negative 40. So this would be written as negative 42 minus 70n. And I like to switch it so that the variable term goes first. So this would be negative 70 and minus 42, maybe that way. Last one's number 5. So number 5, if you remember from 7th grade, what does this mean when there's a negative right next to parentheses? Yeah, there's assumed 1 there, so copy that down. So let's go ahead and do a double distributive. So distribute, 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 distribute. Here you would get negative 5p minus 2. Who wants to distribute the negative 7? That would be positive 42 plus 28p. What can we combine for number 5? Hopefully you said that we can combine the negative 5p and 28p. And then for constants, we combine the negative 2 and the 42. So what would be the final expression in simplest form? It would be positive 23p plus 40. So yeah, let me just double check that. Yeah. So that's a little bit of an introduction to simplifying expressions. We're going to try some on whiteboards, and hopefully this helps.